Now
All
you're
right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Mount Carmel Bible Church. I'm Pastor Richard. Um, Back to this mic for those of you watching at home. And we do have people watching at home. I've gotten a few messages. So that's wonderful. I'd love to have you. We've got a lot of things going on as far as Thanksgiving is coming up. And before we get into the sermon, I want to remind everybody Thanksgiving is a time when we should be thankful to God for everything we've been given. So I feel like I'm slouching, so now I'm a little bit better. All right. So when we gather with our family and our friends for Thanksgiving, let's think about it. You talk about all the blessings we've been given over the year. Um, just time with our family, time with our friends. It's something that's very precious. It's a gift. Every moment we have with each other is a gift from God. And we need to remember that and be reminded of that. Because we might not have it next year. So take some time when you're carving the turkey or passing out the good stuff. Take some time before the football game comes on, before you go out in your deer stand. Take some time and reflect on that. And share that with your family. Say, hey, I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful that you're in my life. I'm thankful for the car that keeps breaking down. I'm thankful for the house that's a little colder than I like it. I'm thankful for I got a sweater that has a lot of holes in it. I love the sweater. I love it. Even though it's got holes in it, I love it. And I'm thankful for it. So take some time and remind yourself, remind your family what you're thankful for. All right. We're in the middle of a couple of series. Well, two series. One of them is the smells of the Bible, and we just did one sermon on it. We have a couple more coming up, but we're in also the Sermon on the Mount, and we're kind of taking that in a line-by-line study. We started first at the end of the sermon because it was important that we realize that this is the time Jesus was speaking with authority. Now, he did a lot of sermons before. He did a lot of teaching before. He did a lot of miracles. And he demonstrated his authority over the wind, over the weather, over health of the bodies. He demonstrated his authority over death by raising Lazarus. But he spoke with authority on this sermon from beginning to end. And in the end, as we discussed, he told us that he was going to be judging us. He told us the people that are out there doing things in his name are still not getting into heaven. Some of them are still not getting into heaven because they don't know him. They say they do. They say they do all these things in his name. They say, I've cast demons out in your name. I've preached in your name. And he said to them, he would say to them, I don't know you. So we have to be careful and be on guard and keep that in our heads. Just because we go to church on Sundays, just because we help people on Tuesdays and throughout the week, are we really doing it for him? Or are we doing it for ourselves? Are we doing it for our benefit? For the people to thank us? It's a real danger. So then we went over the first part of the Sermon on the Mount, which was basically a quick roadmap on how to become saved. Be meek. The Beatitudes were how we should be in our lives. How we have to know that we need God. We have to know that there is a God. We have to know that we don't deserve God. We have to know that we're servants of God. We have to know to follow him and long for him and try to learn more about him. He needs to be our obsession in life. Then we talked about when the Lord said, last week we talked about when the Lord said that he didn't come to fulfill the prophecies, or to fulfill the law, replace it. He came to fulfill it. He came to show us this isn't going away. The Ten Commandments, the law that God gave, he didn't come to replace that. He came to enforce it. He came to show us how to live the way that we were supposed to live. And that's what we're getting to today. Because the last week we ended by going over the Ten Commandments, and we did that because this week he starts clarifying the rules. He clarifies the rules in the Sermon on the Mount. Because at the time, the Jewish hierarchy, the leaders, kept adding things to it, kept adding parts and rules that the people had to follow. Keep the Sabbath day. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. Remember it for God. It's God's day to rest. But then they said, well, you can't do anything. You can't help other people. You can't feed your animals. You can't feed yourselves. You can't do any of this other stuff. That wasn't God's law. That wasn't the intent of God's law. That was the Jewish people in charge adding things to it to make it their law. And we can see that in our government. Our Constitution is pretty clear on what our government should be doing, right? The primary job, according to the Constitution, of the federal government is to protect us from all enemies, foreign and domestic. They have taken that way further than it should be. They're adding, how many different agencies do we have? I know no one here knows because they keep adding them. They keep changing things. They keep getting more and more involved in our lives. But it wasn't the intent from the Constitution. Same thing that they did back then. God gave these 10 commandments. This was the law. And the Jewish people, the high priests, the kingdoms, the kingships, they kept adding things. The Pharisees kept adding more and more rules. So Jesus says in this next section, he clarifies these are the important parts. This is what it means. So let's go over some of this. Today we're going to talk about anger, lust, divorce, and oaths. The next several sections in the Sermon on the Mount. Let me see if I can read this without the mic in the way. Anger. Matthew 5:21 through 26. You have heard it said to those of old, thou shalt not murder, and whoever murders will be liable to judgment. But I say to you, everyone who has anger with his brother will be liable to judgment. Whoever insults his brother will be liable to the council. And whoever says, you fool, will be liable to hell of fire. So if you are offering your gift to the altar, and then remember that you have your brother has something against you, leave your gift before the altar and go. First be reconciled with your brother, then come and offer your gift. Come to terms quickly with your accuser while you are going with him to court, lest your accuser hand you over to the judge, and the judge to the guard, and you be put in prison. Truly I say to you, you will never get out until you have paid the last penny. Now, we've talked about anger before, how in 1 John chapter 4, it says God is love, and you can't have God in your heart if you have anger in your heart. So you have to let the anger go. And what this is saying is murder isn't just about killing someone. It's about having bad thoughts about them, having anger with them. I could tell you this story. I don't know if you know this, but I have a red car. It's in the shop. It's okay, it'll be done tomorrow, right? You all know what I'm talking about. The shop owner that has had my car for over 2 years was already paid. He's already paid to fix the vehicle. He hasn't done that yet. I could be mad at that. I think everybody at one point would be mad at that, right? He is going to be judged for what he has done. The Lord is he's going to have to sit in judgment for what he has done. Right? If I get mad at him, if I have anger and resentment towards him, I am judged for that. You see what that means? It's a reaction, but if someone has wronged you, the Lord is going to take care of that. The Lord is going to take care of it. That person that wronged you is going to face judgment for what they did. But if we hold anger and resentment in our hearts, we are going to have to answer to God for that. And we all know that anger leads to other things. If you get mad and you let it fester, it'll grow. It'll turn into resentment and hate and obsession. And that is definitely not the path to heaven. That's not what we're taught. So we need to let it go. When we get upset with somebody, we need to let that go. And it is so important that he said, if you're bringing a gift to God, don't. Stop. Leave your gift. Go make it right before you come to him. I mean, that's pretty important, right? God doesn't want your gift if you're mad at somebody. When we take the Holy Communion here, I give everybody a few moments before we partake together. And that's the time you should be thinking, did I do something wrong? Am I mad at somebody? Did somebody hurt me? Take your time, think about that, and let it go before you come to God in remembrance. And the last part, if you have done something wrong to somebody, go with them and make it right before they take it to the judge. And we know from the end of the Sermon on the Mount, Jesus is the judge, right? Before you go to Jesus, you want to make things right. Or the judge will hand you off to the jailer. And you will be punished for it. And that's pretty profound. And it's pretty powerful. And it's something we need to think about. If we do something wrong to somebody, we got to make it right. If we're upset with somebody, we need to make that right. So that's the anger section. And then it goes on to lust. Now this part seems clear, but I think it has more meaning than just the surface stuff. From Matthew 27 through 30, you have heard it that it was said, you shall not commit adultery. But I say to you, everyone who looks on a woman in lustful intent has already committed adultery with her in his heart. If your right hand causes you to sin, or if your right eye causes you to sin, tear it out and throw it away. For it is better to lose one of your members than the whole body thrown into hell. If your right hand causes you to sin, cut it off and throw it away. For it is better to lose one of your members than your whole body into hell. And we know from other sermons and other discussions that if the Bible is repeating itself, it's important. Well, it's repeating itself right here. If your eye is causing you to sin, tear it out. If your hand is causing you to sin, cut it off. Now, how many people have you seen walking around town with one eye and one hand? Yeah, crickets. Nobody's seen that. What it's telling us here is if we know something is causing us to sin, get rid of it. It's not saying rip out your eye, cut off your hand. It's saying get rid of it. If you start finding yourself going to a restaurant because you think the waiter or waitress is kind of cute, and then you keep going to that restaurant over and over again until it becomes obsession, till it becomes adultery, you've already messed up. If you see that pattern happening in your life, go to a different restaurant. It it doesn't have to be just about people either. What if you go to a lake, going fishing, and you see this really nice fishing boat? Yeah, you know I'm talking about you, Larry. And you start thinking about that fishing boat. And you want to go to that lake every Sunday because you know that fishing boat's going to be there, and you want to see that thing, and you want to drive that thing, and it becomes an obsession. That's lusting after somebody else's property. Do yourself a favor. Doesn't matter how good the fish are in that lake. Go to a different lake. Take yourself away from those sins. If you know that something is tempting you, get away from it. Every now and then I'll put my phone and I'll take that Facebook app and I'll just put it away for a while. Because especially around election season, I get a little angry listening to some of the people talking and a little upset with the way things are going in this world. So I turn off the news apps. I turn off the Facebook and I just stay away from it. Because I don't need myself to get angry. I don't need myself to get distracted from the Lord. And if I know that something is going to do that, walk away from it. A divorce. Jesus doesn't say a whole lot about divorce, but he says everything about divorce. It was said, whoever divorces his wife, let him give her a certificate of divorce. But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except on the grounds of sexual immorality, makes her commit adultery, and whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Now, what does all that say? At the time, to get a divorce in the Jewish culture, all the male had to do was write a letter, we're divorced. It doesn't matter if she was a hard worker, caring for his family, helping him run the business, doing all wonderful things. If he went out, found some other girl that he liked, he just divorced her, and she'd be out on the street with nothing. Now things have changed a little bit, but what this was saying is if you divorce somebody because of any other reason than sexual immorality, because you wanted something different, then you were causing her to go out and find another husband. So you were causing her to commit adultery. And you were causing the man who she's with to commit adultery. So you're causing other people to sin. That is the problem. That is the problem with the certificate of divorce. The only reason Jesus gives here for divorce is sexual immorality. So we go on to the oaths. From Matthew 5:33 through 37. Again, you have heard that it said to those of old, you shall not swear falsely, but shall perform to the Lord what you have sworn. But I say to you, do not take an oath at all, neither by heaven, for it is the throne of God, nor by earth, for it is his footstool, nor by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not take an oath by your head, for you cannot make one hair white or black. Let what is said be simply yes or no. Anything more comes from evil. Now, what this is saying is, when you swear to do something, right? When you say, I swear to you that I will be here every Sunday. I swear on my life, on my head. Can I do that? Can I guarantee that I'm going to be here every Sunday? I mean, God has already proven that that's not the case. I had that car accident a while back. I have every intent to come here, but I can't swear to come here. I can't promise. Because I can't control everything. When you swear to God, that you're going to do something, you better do it. When you swear to heaven, you better do it. So Jesus is saying it's much better not to swear. Somebody says, hey, are you going to be here next Sunday? Yes, I'm going to. Now, things can change. We all understand that. But I'm not swearing that I'm going to be here. I can say, yeah, I'll be here. And something comes up. We all understand that. That's the way life works. But if I were to swear to God to be here and I wasn't to be here, I broke an oath to God. That's pretty different than saying, yes, I'll be here and not showing up. Jesus is saying, don't do it. Don't swear to God. Don't swear on your life or your family's life. Don't swear on anything. Just make your word be your word. And if things come up, we'll all understand. You won't get in trouble for messing up. But you will get in trouble if you swear to God and then mess up. You see the difference? It's a subtle thing, but it's an important thing. And what we've talked about, these 4 points in the Sermon on the Mount, as we're going through this kind of line-by-line study, he's clarifying the rules. He's clarifying the law that he is going to be judging us on. We need to keep that in mind. We know about anger. We've talked about anger before, how anger is sinful. It's obvious. We've talked about it. We know that when you get mad, you're not focused on God. You're not focused on anything but being mad. That's not going to help you. It's going to help the situation. Things aren't going to get fixed by being mad. It's human nature. We're always potentially going to get mad. There's things that are just going to get under our skin. Kicking that car to try to get to work again, it's going to get us upset. We need to take a break, relax, think about it, let go of our anger because we are going to be judged by that. Lust is something that we all go through. It's not just about people. We can lust after people's property. I've seen some really nice houses, really nice places that I'd love to have, but they're not mine. So I'm okay with that. But if I start getting not okay with that, I need to go a different direction. So sometimes I avoid Dunkin' Donuts because of the coffee, right? Take yourself out of the situation. It is better to take yourself out of the situation, leave that sin away. If it's something that's pulling you the wrong direction, you'll know it. But take action. Cut that away from your life for a while. And if it continues, continue to cut it away. Divorce is pretty simple. If you're causing someone else to sin, that is never a good thing, right? We've talked about that in other discussions too, where if somebody says alcohol is sinful to me, then if you try to get them to drink, you're trying to get them to commit sin. So we need to be aware of that. We will be responsible to the judge if we're helping someone or causing someone to sin. That also applies back to anger and lust. If we're causing someone to sin, we could be causing them to get angry, which is a sin. If we're causing someone to get angry, we're causing them to sin. So we're going to be in trouble for not fixing my car and making me angry. And I will be in trouble for being angry. See what I'm saying? If you cause someone to sin, you're in trouble for what you do, plus causing them to sin. If you're reacting to somebody causing you to sin, you're sinning, and you will be responsible for that. And oaths, promising to God that you're going to do something and not doing it, is important. You will be in trouble for that. It's pretty simple. Always say, Lord, I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try to be better. I'm going to try not to sin. We all know we're going to sin. We can't help it. We can try not to, but we're going to. So if you promise God you're not going to sin, guess what? You're going to break that promise. You think that's a good thing? It's not. So that's where we're at so far in the Sermon on the Mount. Jesus spoke with authority. He said all these things as he should. He is God. He is going to judge us. And he wanted to clarify what he's judging us on. So we're going to continue this the Sermon on the Mount in the future. Consider that. These are the things that Jesus said we're responsible for. And if we're responsible for it, we should be paying attention and taking it to heart. So let's go to the Lord in prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the message. Thank you for strengthening our spirit, strengthening our knowledge, helping us come closer to you. Thank you for all the many blessings you've given us. Thank you for keeping us safe, keeping us together, keeping us strong. Continue to strengthen us. Continue to be with us. Continue to monitor and help guide us in the right direction. Help us notice the things that in life that are pulling us away from you and avoid them. Help us make the right decisions. Guide us and strengthen us. And keep us clear on the path to you. We love you, Lord. In Jesus' name, amen.